David, I'm getting a dialog box asking me to admit participants. Do I do that?
To admit what, sorry?
Participants.
Oh yeah,
I'm getting a.
you can admit participants. I'll be doing the same.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start. So we're here with Dr. Mary Gabriel. She teaches English at Auxilium College in Vellore, Tamil Nadu, South India. She specializes in linguistics and literary criticism, and in the way culture intertwines with semantics and pragmatics. She's published many works analyzing Salman Rushdie's fiction in particular, which I find very interesting as a fan. She'll be presenting today on semantics and pragmatics, and so without further ado, I'll just let her present to you, Dr. Mary Gabriel.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, David. And thank you, Tarun. I haven't met Tarun personally. He's the one who sort of introduced me to this forum. Um it's really nice to meet this a group of young people over this international forum. My audio is okay? Are you able to hear me? Yeah. So it's really fantastic to meet a group of young people who are interested in linguistics. Back in India, in the place where I'm working, students always approach linguistics as a subject with a lot of fear because they think it's too far, too over their head to grasp. But then to see a group of people from different parts of the world gathered together to learn and discuss about linguistics is really very heartening. I'm so happy. We will straight start this. I'm here. I hope all of you can see my presentation. Can you see my slide? Yeah. So we are here to discuss semantics and pragmatics. Both semantics and pragmatics as two different branches of linguistics. They deal with meaning. I don't have to tell you what meaning means, okay? But the only difference being semantics is specific to the language in question, whereas pragmatics is specific to the user who is using that language. In either way, meaning is the central element. How does meaning work? How does meaning operate? When the user deals with the language in specific, or when the user operates the meaning in a specific context. You must be familiar with this diagram that sort of depicts language structure. It demonstrates how language is built up in 6 layers, where you have phonetics as the innermost circle. Then you have phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. You can make out that semantics and pragmatics are the two outermost circles. There is a reason why this diagram depicts semantics and pragmatics as the two outermost circles here. It's basically because semantics and pragmatics belong to the performative space of language. When it comes to sounds, it is mostly the speaker getting familiar with the sounds, differentiating one sound from the other. So it's all to do with the dynamics between the language and the speaker, the learner.
Just
But
sorry,
then,
sorry,
yeah,
Doctor. But we can only see your first slide right now. So can you
oh yeah,
you have to reshare to show the
yeah,
full presentation? Sorry.
that's okay. Then I'll keep it on the scroll mode. When I put it on slideshow, I think it's not going to the next slide. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's working now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So sorry for the inconvenience. So you have the structure sort of depicting how language is structured. No, you have 6 concentric circles there, and you see the innermost circle is phonetics and the outermost circle is pragmatics. It makes sense because, as I told you just now, semantics and pragmatics belongs to the performative space where language is actually performed with meaning as the central element, as the focal element. So you can see there how phonetics and phonology is to do with the sound. Morphology and syntax is to do with the structure, whereas semantics and pragmatics is solely concerned with meaning alone. And that's what we saw in the first slide, with the only difference that semantics is to do with language specific meaning, whereas pragmatics is to do with the speaker specific meaning, as in how the speaker handles meaning in an actual communicative space. That is the basic difference between semantics and pragmatics. So when you put it down in a well structured, sorry for the background noise, well structured definition, semantics means the study of meaning within a specific language. Now, if you look into the word meaning itself, you see that it has a wide range of connotations. In one sense, it means purpose, no, philosophically speaking, in psychology as well. You know that human beings are referred to as meaning making animals. So whatever humans do, they always do it with the purpose. There's a sense of direction to it. There is a sense of destination that in all that we do. That is what meaning means in general. But in language, meaning sort of is restricted to linguistic forms. By linguistic form, we mean words, phrases, sentences, and in some cases, the tone of our voice also indicates the meaning that we intend. So when it comes to semantics, we are concerned with two things, two major branches or two major areas in a language. Number one, linguistic form. As I just now said, it's to do with words, phrases, and sentences and what they mean. It also refers to etymology. Etymology in the sense as a language user or as a specialist in the meaning of a language, you should be aware of what a particular word meant at the time of its origins and what it means now. That's what etymology is all about. It is nothing but the origin of the meaning. So when you deal with meaning in language, you're concerned with linguistic forms and what they mean. You are also concerned with what the words mean today as against what they meant 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Now, in terms of the connection between semantics and linguistic form, you see words operate with meaning at two levels, one at the level of definition and the other at the level of relations. Now, every word by itself will mean something, and it is also defined in a specific manner in the reference books that we sought to when we look for the meaning of a word or a phrase or sentences. Now, this is what is meant by the connection between linguistic form and its meaning in terms of definition. So conceptually, every word has a meaning, every phrase has a meaning, and every sentence has a meaning. But semantics doesn't stop there. Meaning is very dynamic, that it sort of operates to a level that is outside the definitive conceptual confines. And that is where we come to relations, which is otherwise known as associative meaning. You either deal with conceptual meaning in semantics, or you deal with associative meaning, associative aspect of meaning. So in terms of definitions, it is conceptual meaning. In terms of relations, it is associative meaning. How does this work? Every word by itself means something, but the same word in relation to another word or another set of words means something else. So there's always an extension of a word with layers and layers of meaning building around it, depending on the context in which it is used and depending on the other words that are used. Now, in terms of definition, we always refer to a dictionary. When we refer to a dictionary, we actually look for the conceptual meaning of a word, phrase, or a sentence. But when it comes to relations, we are in a network. We are in a web of relations. Words also mean things when they are in relation to other words. As in terms of, as in the case of synonyms, you see, if you have to understand the word little, you understand it in relation to another synonym. Little means small. The relation doesn't stop there. You also understand a word in an antonymical relationship. That is, you understand a word in relation with its antonym, with its opposite. Little is the opposite of large. You also have relations where you have two words known as hyponyms. When you refer to the dictionary for the meaning of the word dog, it says it is a four-legged animal. So dog is an animal. So the word dog and animal share hyponymous relation. Then you have relations between homophones, words that sound the same but mean different things. You have homonyms, words that have the same form in terms of sound as well as spelling, but then they mean two different things according to the context in which they are used. You can see the example of bank as in a river bank as a financial institution, bat the animal, and bat the sports equipment. You also see words used in polysemic relations. Poly means multi, right? A word can be used in any number of contexts with any number of meanings. Take the word head, for example. You use it as to refer to a part in your body, but then head also means an important person in an institution. You say head of the institution, you say head of the department. Take the word chemistry, for example. Although it literally means a branch of science that deals with chemicals, you know that chemistry also talks about or defines relationship. When the relationship is good and smooth, you say, I have a good chemistry with my friend, with my co-worker. There is another relation which is connotative. Connotative is when you have very fine difference in the use of the word according to the context in which it is used. Slender and skinny may look like synonyms, but slender has a positive value, but skinny has a negative value. You call someone slender, it's like a compliment. When you say that somebody's skinny, it's not a compliment. They may even get offended by that. So words in terms of meanings either have definitive meanings or conceptual meanings. On the other hand, associative meaning, that is meaning in relation to another set of words. But relations in meaning doesn't stop here. There are so many more relations that we have. See, as people, we attach personal value to a word. See, one word may infuriate me highly, but another person in this forum may not feel that word is as offensive as it feels to me. So individually as well as users, we connect certain value to words. And as I told you, You can never restrict the dynamic quality of meaning and say, this is it, this is what meaning is, or this is how meaning works. It doesn't stop. It sort of keeps extending. Let's move on to the next important aspect of semantics, that is etymology, where we deal with change of meaning, as in what that word meant originally and what that word means now. As language users, when you're familiar with a language, you are also familiar with the history of the word in terms of its meaning. At one point of time, the word mouse meant only an animal, but now it refers to a device that you use with your laptop or computer. Spam at one point of time meant tinned meat, stored meat, but now it also means unwanted email. Surfing meant riding on a surfboard, but today surfing also means to move from one site to the other on the internet. Nice originally meant foolish, but now it means pleasant, good enough. Office only referred to the duties of a religious person in a place of worship. But now office means any workplace of any person who holds a position in an administrative hierarchy. Naughty meant wicked at one point of time during Shakespeare's time, but now naughty merely means mischievous. There's nothing wicked about being naughty these days. So as students interested in linguistics, as students interested in semantics, we get to see how language works at 6 different levels. And of all the 6 different levels, the outermost performative level is semantics and pragmatics. And semantics works at 2 levels. First, in terms of the linguistic forms, and then in terms of etymology. Under linguistic forms, you have the conceptual meaning on the one hand and associative meaning on the other hand. Now we move on to the next part, or the other side of the coin, so to say, pragmatics. Pragmatics is specific to the speaker. As language users, we may be familiar with what every word or a set of words mean by going through the dictionary, by referring to books and all that. But then as language users, we are trained, or we have acquired the skill to handle meaning in a specific manner, in a specialized manner, when we actually take part in a conversation. So this is basically what we get to see in pragmatics. That's why pragmatics is defined as the study of meaning within a specific context and concerned with a specific speaker. Now, in pragmatics, you have so many elements that come into shape your conversation, specifically in how you deal with meaning when you take part in a conversation. The first and foremost is context. The context determines how meanings are fixed in the words in your conversation and how meanings operate in the conversation. You may use codes to refer to a person or a place or a thing, but how it works between two people who take part in a conversation is basically because the speaker as well as the listener is aware, they share a common knowledge about the context in which they are speaking, they are using that language. So meaning operates at a very particular personal level when it comes to context. And there are 2 types of context. One is called the linguistic context and the other is called the physical context. Linguistic context is basically determined by the relationship that one word has with another word. So there is an example in the next slide there. When you say she's meeting the bank manager today, you know which bank is being spoken of there. The bank there is the financial institution, because that's where you have a manager. But when you see the same word bank in a sentence like this, the bank is overgrown or mossy, you don't mean that financial bank where money is saved. There it is the river bank. So this is basically what is meant by linguistic context, where the meaning of a word is determined and understood by the speaker and the listener by their knowledge about the relationship of one specific word with the other words in the structure that they are using. This is basically what is meant by linguistic context. And physical context, as language users, we know how to place physical context, because we have learned to link a physical entity with a word that refers to it. When you see a building, you know you have to call it a bank because it has a name board. When you see a water gate or a bridge nearby, you know that it is a river bank. So this is basically what is meant by context. The next important element in pragmatics is deixis. Deixis is almost like codes. You know what code means. Code is an indication of something that is not apparently stated. You don't have any direct expression to it, but it is sort of coded. When you speak about your friend, a common friend, when you're speaking with your friend and both of you are talking about a common friend, and you keep using the word he, you know who you are talking about, and your friend knows who you are talking about. So this is called uh, deixis. Deixis is nothing but the codes that we use when we talk, and as speakers and listeners, as language users, we are both familiar in understanding uh, what each code means. When I say he, I know who he refers to, and my friend knows who he refers to. When you use words like this, that, when you use words like here, there, now, then, later, the day after, all these things are words that function like codes in a specific context. A person who is not taking part in the conversation or who is not in your circle may not know what he refers to. So there are so many types of deixis that refer to people, as in me, you, in terms of a pronoun. Sometimes you also have words functioning as codes. You may have a pet name for your friend. That also functions like a deictic expression. You also have deictic expression for space, like when you say here, there, behind, in front, between. So these are all deictic expressions. Then you also have reference. When you speak, you use, just now I said some certain code words, but when you're specific with certain code words, you are actually using what is known as a reference. Pet name is a very good example of reference. Then you have inference. Inference is when you both know, when the speaker and the listener knows what is being spoken about, the common agreement that we both have, that is called inference. Then anaphora and antecedent are words that refer to, they are like markers, no? When you keep using uh, 10 different words to refer to the same person, like for example, when you talk about Shakespeare, you use his full name, William Shakespeare, then you use the word he, then you use the Bard of Avon. When you use all these words to refer to the same person, you know that all these words refer to that one person, and they are not many different people in the context. This is where anaphora and antecedent come. Although they sound like technical terms, they are indicators of all the tacit elements that are involved in our conversation. As language users, we are familiar with that. We acquire the skills of who's being referred to, what are deictic expressions, what is being inferred, etc. Then comes presupposition. Presupposition is the speaker's assumption that whatever I'm talking about is something that my listeners know. If I'm talking to my friend about pizza, I'm speaking with the presupposition that she knows what pizza is, what it looks like, and that it is a meal. and what are the elements that go into uh, preparing that and stuff like that. So my understanding, my assumption that she knows what pizza is, and all the elements that I add on to it. I'm going to beg thee to have a pizza. I'm going to have a cheese burst pizza. If I say all that, I'm using these words under the assumption that she knows what pizza is. So this is what is meant by presupposition. Then comes speech acts. Speech acts is, as language users, we are fully aware of the function of the kind of expressions that we use. When we are very polite, we use a set of words. We say may I, we say excuse me, we say sorry. These are all known as speech acts because they are specific set of they are specific structures meant for a particular purpose. You may command a person according to who you are talking to. You may request a person if it is a person who is superior to you. If you are addressing your teacher, you may not use the same set of words that you use to address your friend. So this is called speech act. Then comes the two important aspect, that is politeness and face. As language users, we are familiar, or we are aware that politeness is a positive quality that you have to use when you speak. You have to agree. You have to say things like I understand. You have to say, oh yeah, I know. uh, you have to say sure. You have to say thank you. All these things are words that sort of make you a better language user, a polite language user, which enable you to take part in conversation. Then face has two aspects, that is positive face and negative face. Negative face is when you are least bothered about the next person taking part in the conversation. Like when you say, I want it on my table on Monday morning. That's it. When you're not ready to listen to the other person, you are speaking with a negative face. But when you say, I know you can do it. I know you are going to do it. Can you do this, please? When you say all this, you are actually putting on a positive face. All this makes up for what, uh, what all this makes up for the qualities that actually makes us good language users. That's why I told you semantics and pragmatics are two important branches that are in the performative space, where you get to perform your knowledge about language and how meaning works in language. So that brings us to the last slide here. If you are looking forward to making a career with this linguistics, what are the things that you can become? You can become a language and speech therapist because you know how to deal with problems that concern language use. When children have difficulties, when learners have difficulties in pronunciation, in taking part in conversation, you can always help them because of the kind of knowledge that you have about how languages work. Then you can teach foreign languages. In terms of policies and methodologies that you adopt, will be based on the knowledge that you have about language. And language used as a therapy and teaching. When you deal with special kids and all, you see how language has to be used like a therapy. And forensic linguistics is actually an interesting branch in linguistics, where language structures and analysis of language structures are used to track down criminals, depending on how they use a word, how they pronounce a particular word. And you can also that's all. I think I've repeated the point there. So I think that's all I've got to share with you about semantics and pragmatics. I want to thank Tarun and David for giving me a chance in this forum to address you guys. Thank you, friends. If there's any questions, we can
Yeah,
address
if you
them.
guys if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat, or you can just say them out loud to ask.
Okay, there are no questions. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got a question by Losati64. Did you see in the chat?
What parts of the brain are responsible for understanding semantic meanings based on context? Okay, we don't know your name. We assume that it is Losati. Losati, actually, in terms of locating brain, no, or locating that part of the brain which is responsible for language learning, we have only gone so far in finding out that the left hemisphere is involved in language learning. Okay, but uh, so far we have not been able to spot. I had been following research in linguistics up until like 2015. Till that time, I haven't heard anybody spotting how meaning works. This is actually an interesting question because as language users, we also construct meanings. We not just uh, go by the meanings, uh, the conceptual meanings that are given to us in the dictionaries. As language users, we also become makers of meanings. See, etymology and how the meanings of the words have been changing is actually a very good proof, no, to see how dynamic we are in handling language with words with its meanings. That we are able to change the meaning, we are able to twist them. So I don't think there's a specific spot. Insofar as I know, there's a specific spot in our brain that governs our semantic and pragmatic uh, abilities. That there are none, but we know there is some spot in the left hemisphere of our brain that sort of helps us in language learning. Thank you for that interesting question. And this is actually a very important aspect. We are meaning makers also in terms of language. I think there is another question. Ma'am, can you give an overview of psycholinguistics? What exactly it is and what is dealt with in the field? Yeah. Psycholinguistics is associated with two branches, that is psychology and linguistics. See, as language users, mind is an abstract idea. It is a theoretical phenomenon. Whereas you have another branch called neurolinguistics, where you see neurobiology studied in relation with linguistics. And that is where uh, experts have told us that language learning faculty is located in our left hemisphere, in the left part of our brain. Psycholinguistics is more to do with our attitude towards language. As language users, not all of us respond to this to language structures in the same fashion. Some of us may act on only threats. Now, if I'm a secretary and if I'm working in an office, I have my boss. Okay, uh, Gabriel may react to or act on only specific language structures, like, for example, threats. Now, only if my boss tells me, Gabriel, if you don't get this work done by Monday, you're fired. Only that appeals to me. Only that words appeal to me. There may be another person, take, for example, we have Uzma in the forum. Uzma may respond to positive reinforcement. Now, Uzma's boss or the boss will have to tell Uzma to get the work done. Uzma, there's nobody on earth that I know can do this work. Only you can do this work. So only positive reinforcement may work on Uzma. So psycholinguistics is basically to do with how, as individuals, our mind relates with language structures. Like Gabriel can act only when there is a threat, only when there is an emergency. Uzma can act only when there is positive reinforcement. For David, it may be something else. For Anna, it may be something else. Maybe for Anna, it is just a request. Anna, I want this on my table on Monday. the work is done. So as language users, not all of us have the same dynamics with language structures. What works with one person may not work on another person. That is what psycholinguistics is all about, and that is where you see motivators come in. No, why motivators are more influential on people. No, when influencers, we call them influencers and motivators. No, how is it that the language that they use has a specific effect? When parents at home tell us the same thing, we don't listen to them, or it doesn't appeal to us. How is it that a person like an influencer or a motivator is able to do that? How does our mind work with the language structures used by the motivator or whoever is talking to us? That is what psycholinguistics is all about. Writers are it is all about the art of persuasion. No, how do I get people to listen to me? How do I get people to do what I want them to do? That is basically what is psycholinguistics. Not just that, it also talks about team dynamics. No, if I need all the people in my office to work as a team and get something done, how do I do that? How do I put them into a team when they are like so not when there is a lot of disagreement among my colleagues or my subordinates? How do I get them to work together as a team? So all these things sort of psycholinguistics is also connected with translation. Translators, when they deal with two different languages, not all of us have the same sort of reaction to all these languages. I may have one type of reaction for my mother tongue. I may have another type of reaction for a foreign language. So the dynamics of language and mind, no, that is what is studied in psycholinguistics. Yeah, I think I've heard somewhere that either deictic or anaphoric refers to things or people that are present. Is that true? Not necessarily. Things or people that are present. You don't use the word he, not necessarily to things that are present right there when the conversation is happening. It may refer to somebody who lived in the past. Just now I gave you an example of Shakespeare. No, Shakespeare was a great writer. He wrote 37 plays. When you say he, when you use the word he, you are referring to Shakespeare. And Shakespeare is not present in the contemporary context, no, in the present context. That's the question from Alexandra. Regarding etymology and changes of word meanings, do they happen in different ways between languages? Like, would they be sharper, more aggressive in some languages, and are they closely related to phonetic changes? Losati, it's all of it. All that you say happens in change of meaning. There's a book by F.T. Wood, Frederick T. Wood. That's the name of the author. He has written a beautiful book called The Introduction to the History of English Language, where he talks about an entire chapter is written on change of meaning in English language. Uh, all those things that you have stated in your question is part of that chapter. But linguists, because of the fact that they are doing it in the form of a research, uh, they don't have change of meaning addressed under these heads, as in how your question is stating. No, like is it different between one language and the other? Um, does it go with sounds? Or actually, it's everything, and it's a very chaotic. It's a chaotic manner in which meaning changes, no, down the ages with a word. It happens because of misunderstanding. It happens because of a spelling mistake that some writer does. It happens because of some communication gap between one speaker and the other. So there's a lot of gap in the way how words sort of change in their meaning. You don't have a specific pattern, no, to state and say, okay, this is how words change their meaning. Yeah. The name of the book is The History of English Language by F.T. Wood. Maybe I will type it on the chat box. And the name of the chapter is Change of Meaning. IFT. Yeah. I think I posted it to David. Am I right? David, can you post it?
I can put it into the whole chat.
Yeah. There's a linguist by name David Crystal. He has actually written a lot of works on language, and his books are very, very interesting. They are in a conversational, very simple. His language style is actually very simple and interesting. David Crystal is a very good writer to begin with. When you're interested in linguistics, you can like he sort of covers almost all the areas in linguistics, and he gives it in all tiny portions, where you can understand them easily. All of his books are very good. David Crystal. There's one of his recent books is the little book on language. David Crystal. So I've put that the name of the author there. His books are really fantastic, and you will learn a lot. So if there are no questions, I think we can wind up this session.
I think there's one more question by Jessica Ding right above the. Can you restate the name of the book?
I think Tarun has my WhatsApp number. Tarun, Tarun?
Yes, I'm sure, ma'am.
Yeah, you can share it with Jessica Ding. I don't mind, Jessica. You can have my email ID, maybe. There.
All right.
You have my email ID there.
Cool. So thank you so much for coming to talk to everyone today. And thank you guys for listening and for the great questions. And just as a reminder, this was, you can participate in more events in the future like this, and maybe see Dr. Mary Gabriel again, but who knows. More events in the future like this. And stay notified by joining the Discord that I'll link in the chat. That's the Discord for LingLeague, who hosts this, where you can stay updated about future events. And so thank you so much once again for coming to present here. And I think that's it.
Thank you, David, and thank you, participants. See you.
Bye, everyone.